facts, candid conversations, and some levity to lighten your day. This is The Cale Clark Show on Relevant Radio.
A wonderful Thursday to you. Today is Thursday, right? The days are blurring together for me. So glad to have you with me on The Cale Clark Show. If you're having one of those days too, give me a call, 1-888-914-9149, 888-914-9149. You can also email the program. If you have a question that you'd like us to answer or comment, Cale, C-A-L-E, at relevantradio.com. And you can follow me on Twitter, at Cale Clark. The show account is at Cale Clark Show. My personal account is spelled C-A-L-E, Clark with an E. And I tweeted something from the at Cale Clark account that was kind of mysterious. A picture of Timothy Chalamet holding a dagger. And I said, we're going to talk about it. Yeah. Is this Dune theme music, Lucas?
Yes, it is.
Wow. Okay, now I have not seen the film yet, but I think I have to because everybody's talking about it. A lot of people I know have seen it. I think Andrew Petiprin, a good friend of ours who's been on the program recently, he went to see it. I think he's going to be writing an article about it. A lot of people have thought about, some of the Catholic themes in the movie Dune. We're going to get into that in just a second. But I did tweet a picture of the star of Dune, Timothy Chalamet, holding a dagger, and I said it has some connection to today's feast day, the Saints Simon and Jude, apostles. And what does that have to do with anything? And also I mentioned Pope Benedict. I'm going to sort it all out for you on the Cale Clark Show. So we are getting ready to crack open another fresh show for you. Lucas and I have our beverages on hand. Don't worry.
Cheers.
It's just cola, caffeine. I've got Pepsi Zero Sugar. Lucas, I'm going to guess you're going with Diet Coke this time? Or?
You are correct.
Wow.
That
okay.
is, yep.
I'm clairvoyant.
Yep. Didn't stray from the
path.
path.
A word of knowledge from the Spirit there. So, all right. Well, let's savor some Catholic truths that we can find in the movie Dune, which is obviously sweeping the nation. And Dune, of course, is a film that is based on, this isn't the first time, by the way, it's made it to the screen. There was a television miniseries about Dune a few years ago. A lot of people remember the first movie incarnation of Dune in 1984, and that was starring, of course, the guy from Twin Peaks. What is his name? Kyle MacLachlan. He was in that. I haven't seen that movie. It was panned at the time, but it's developed a cult following ever since. But that film and the current film that was just released in October of this year, just a few days ago, is based on the 1965 science fiction novel of the same name, Dune, which was written by the American author Frank Herbert. And originally this novel was published as two separate serials in a magazine called Analog Magazine. And it was, people immediately thought this should be a movie, even way back then. And I haven't read the book, full disclosure. I am going to go see the movie. My wife has read the book. I know Lucas has seen the movie. I'm going to ask him for his thoughts in just a minute. But the plot is as follows. Dune is set in the distant future amidst a feudal interstellar society in which various noble houses control planetary fiefdoms. And it's the story. Now, the protagonist of the film is Paul Atreides. And his family accepts the stewardship of a planet called Arrakis. Now, this planet is pretty inhospitable. It's sparsely populated. It's kind of a desert wasteland. Maybe that's why it's called Dune, dunes of the desert. But it is the only source of something called melange, or spice, which is a drug that both extends life and enhances people's mental abilities. It's also necessary, this melange, for space navigation. And for that, you need a multidimensional awareness, foresight that only the melange can provide for you. So they can only produce it on this planet called Arrakis. So controlling this planet is something people want to do. It's a coveted planet, but it's also a dangerous undertaking to try to do that. So apparently Dune is about the multi-layered interactions of politics, religion, ecology, technology, human emotion, as all these factions in this empire confront each other in a struggle for the control of the planet Arrakis and this spice called melange. Anyways, sounds intriguing. I know Lucas saw it the other day, and he enjoyed it. I'm going to, again, get into some of his Catholic connections that he's made with the film in just a second. But the author of Dune was Frank Herbert. Now, he was raised Catholic. But he rejected his Catholic faith later on. And part of it is, some of this is stuff, it kind of makes its way into the movie, I think. But and if you haven't seen Dune, that's okay, because here's the jumping off point. Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune, basically felt like the Catholic faith was imposed upon him. It was kind of shoved down his throat. And I want to kind of explore this a little bit. There's an article that was published today, actually, in Aletheia by Philip Kozlowski about this. And let me just, first of all, we're going to talk about this. Let's just play a clip of the director of Dune, the director of the movie, Denis Villeneuve, and he's a fellow Canadian. He's directed another movie that I really, really like. I'll talk about that in just a second. But here's director Denis Villeneuve talking about the film and Frank Herbert.
Leave us. You must do everything that my Reverend Mother tells you.
She's supposed to be in control of her emotion. She's almost about to hug him, almost about to touch him, but she cannot allow herself to do that because she's in front of the Mother Superior, her having to brought her own son into a test that could mean his death. It shows the tension between the motherhood and being a Bene Gesserit sister.
You dismissed my mother in her own house.
Come here. Kneel.
Here, several things are happening. The Bene Gesserit can use something called as the voice in order to control the other human's will.
How dare you use the voice on me?
I deeply love the veil. The idea was to create a feeling of a distant, a religious feeling as well. It's a religious congregation, and I wanted to have the feeling that there's something about like the medieval nuns, that to have a feeling of someone that is above reality. At the end of the day, it just felt deeply right.
Put your right hand in the box. Your mother bade you obey me.
There's something kind of a sacred quality to this scene. The science fiction here is more about the evolution of the human brain. And I think it's all about that. This is what Dune is about.
Okay, so that was Denis Villeneuve. You can't tell he's French-Canadian, can you, with that accent? But he, of course, is the director of the film. And these are some of the religious aspects of the movie. He's talking about a character in the film that's called the Reverend Mother of the Bene Gesserit, and we'll get into that in just a second. But the Reverend Mother is trying to figure out who this protagonist of the film is, Paul Atreides, and he's really kind of a messiah figure. He's a messiah figure in the book and in the movie. In fact, part 2 of, there's going to be a second Dune movie. They just announced it. It's going to be called Dune Messiah, I think. Well, because that's what the second part of the Dune book was called. So he's a messianic figure. And I think a lot of this stuff that got into the book was really evocative of the author, Frank Herbert, his own journey, questioning Catholicism. And so in this article that came out on Aletheia, it talks about how Frank Herbert was raised Catholic, but again, his experience was not very positive. And this is part of the reason why he abandoned his faith later on in his life. And so there is a biography written by Frank Herbert's son about all of this stuff. And the characters in Dune, Lady Jessica and this group of women known as the Bene Gesserit, that word Jesuit sounds a lot like Jesuit, doesn't it? And that's for a reason, because Frank Herbert was really influenced by the Jesuits in his formation. He had a number of Catholic aunts and Jesuit educators who raised him in the Catholic religion. And in this biography of Frank Herbert, it says this: his Irish Catholic maternal aunts, who attempted to force religion on him, became the models for the Bene Gesserit sisterhood of Dune. It is no accident that the pronunciations of Gesserit and Jesuit are similar, as he envisioned his maternal aunts and the Bene Gesserit of Dune as female Jesuits. The attempted brainwashing of Frank Herbert by his aunts, as he later termed it, was performed over the protestations, the protests of his dad, Frank Herbert Sr., who was an agnostic. So Frank Herbert's dad was not happy about his son's training in the Catholic Church. And so later on, he rebelled against all of this, did Frank Herbert. And he said this, quote, "I was a rebel against the Jesuits. I can win an argument in the Jesuit fashion, but I think it's flying under false colors. If you control the givens, you can win any argument." End of quote. And again, connected with his negative experience, subjectively, of course, he experienced it as negative. His negative experience of Catholicism is how in Dune, the leaders of the Bene Gesserit group of women are called Reverend Mother, and that is a reference to the leaders of women's religious orders. So again, Paul Atreides, who is the main character in the film, is referred to as Messiah figure, and it's no surprise that his mother, who is Lady Jessica, is also related to the Blessed Mother. And in the desert planet of Arrakis, which is in the film and in the book as well, it's very evocative of the Holy Family's flight into the deserts of Egypt. So in this way, Paul Atreides, who's the main character, is kind of a Moses figure and a Jesus figure, trying to lead a group called the Freemen out of their bondage in the desert. And anyway, so all of this stuff is in the background of the movie. So Frank Herbert, again, had a very negative personal experience with Catholicism. But you can see how the influence got into the Dune narrative. He felt that religion was forced down his throat. And in writing Dune was kind of one way that he tried to deal with his childhood and the negative, in his view, influence of the church. So he didn't feel consoled by the church. He didn't feel set free by the teaching of the church, which is unfortunate because Jesus says the truth will set you free. So perhaps it's the way it was presented to him. I don't know. But in Dune, he tries to turn a lot of these Catholic symbols upside down. Now, Frank Herbert eventually left the church, converted to Zen Buddhism, and eventually the characters in his works adopt kind of a Zen Buddhist type of spirituality. So all of this is to say, and this article is trying to make the point, that if we present the Catholic faith in the wrong way, it can actually it can cause people to reject the faith, reject God. And so this is something that St. John Paul II, Pope Benedict after him, they would constantly be talking about this, that the Catholic faith should never be imposed. And Frank Herbert certainly felt it was imposed on him. It always needs to be proposed to people. We propose the truth of the Catholic faith, but we can never impose it, either by force or by coercion or by any other illegitimate means. So here's a question for you as you're listening to the show today. Have you ever had an experience where you felt the Catholic faith was imposed upon you rather than proposed? Or what are some of your success stories? Have you been successful in proposing the faith to someone who in freedom can then either accept it or reject it? We're going to get into this a little bit more after the break, but the number to call, 1-888-914-9149. You're listening to the Cale Clark Show on Relevant Radio, 888-914-9149. Be right back. Catholic Order of Foresters is proud to sponsor the Relevant Radio studio line. For information about employment opportunities and flexible premium life insurance plans, visit relevantradio.com/Forester.
This is the Cale Clark Show, giving you the confidence you need to bring the faith into everyday life.
Hey, welcome back to the show, 1-888-914-9149. Cale Clark with you. You can follow me on Twitter at Cale Clark, C-A-L-E, Clark with an E. For those of you who might have been listening on the Relevant Radio app or on the live stream and it conked out on you in the last segment, major league apologies, technical difficulties, gremlins in the system. I think we've got it fixed. I think we've got the problem fixed. So now if you've been listening on the radio, perhaps you're in your car, driving on the freeway in LA or somewhere else coming home from work around this fine country, the United States of America, or if you're listening anywhere else around the world somehow on radio, you were okay, not affected, but just want to let you know that anything you missed, we were kind of breaking down the Catholic themes in the movie Dune. We're going to post kind of a clip of the first segment. In case you missed it, we'll post that online on our Twitter account for the show, at Cale Clark Show. And we'll see if we can get it on the website too. But anyways, the podcast of the full episode of this show will be available about an hour after the program ends. You can always listen to it. It is recorded, so we'll make sure that you can get caught up on that. So once again, apologies for the technical difficulties, but these things happen sometimes. This is live radio. We just kind of roll with it. And speaking of Dune, so the creator of Dune, Frank Herbert, was raised a Catholic, had some very negative experiences with the faith. He felt that it was being imposed upon him. He felt like he was being shoved down his throat, so he rejected Catholicism. But a lot of his tortured relationship with the faith kind of makes it into the movie Dune, which is sweeping the nation right now, starring Timothée Chalamet, among others. Zendaya, who's kind of the flavor of the moment right now. She's all over the place. She's in the movie too, but people are upset because she's only in for 7 minutes. I guess she'll be more featured in the next film. But I haven't seen the movie yet, but I will see it because, hey, you kind of have to, man. It's a cultural zeitgeist kind of moment. And producer Lucas, you did go to see the movie the other day. What were some of your thoughts and some of the hidden gems, maybe, of truth that you found in the film?
Yeah, so I actually really enjoyed it. Now, I know hardcore Dune fans might have some grappling with some of the director's decisions, but I thought it was really good. It's kind of everything that you would like in a sci-fi movie, I feel like, good, evil, interstellar travel. These kind of subplots going on with different characters. But, it was fascinating to me because before the movie came out, I had no familiarity with Dune. So I had zero expectations going in and whatever. And this was before I had read this piece by Philip Kozlowski kind of connecting some Catholic themes. And I had some similar thoughts. There are a lot of Catholic themes that I think emerge. Now, it's definitely not a Catholic movie or anything like that. But there are some things that I think can resonate deeply with the Catholic story, with the gospel. And I think the most obvious one is that you have people in a desert anticipating a Messiah.
Yeah.
That's kind of the key one.
Yeah.
But from a specifically Catholic perspective, the thing that stood out to me is Lady Jessica, the mother of Paul Atreides, the quote-unquote
figure in the
expected
film,
Messiah. Yeah. Lady Jessica is fascinating to me. She really stood out to me because she's this powerful woman who's also very tender with her son. And you can tell that she's really taking him by the hand and leading him. And I just kept thinking to myself all the time, this is Mary. This is Mary. Like to like any follower of Jesus, she's kind of showing us the way, because in the film, Paul doesn't really have everything all together. He doesn't know how to use the voice quite yet, and she's trying to teach him how to do it. And I feel like as a follower of Jesus, I'm like still like trying to figure it out, and Mary's like, all right, you kind of got it, but just do this a little, do this.
Yeah, she's our mother too. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. So there's just a couple,
Yeah, and you can obviously tell that some of the vestiges of the rejected faith of the creator of Dune, Frank Herbert, did make it into the film, maybe in spite of himself. And again, I just want to get sort of glom onto this topic of how he felt that the Catholic faith was shoved down his throat and imposed upon him. And JP2, I'm going to give you some quotes in a second, and Pope Benedict both said during their pontificates, we must never impose the faith, but we propose it. We simply propose it. We have to respect people's human freedom on this.